I think I'd always had some proclivities toward engineering. I think the earliest kind of instance that my parents knew that was a very serious thing for me was when I was 7. I actually drew like the underbody of a car that I just knew was going to run on oxygen. But then it wasn't until I took a class called Earth Space Science in the 8th grade that I had kind of delved or learned more about space. While I was always intrigued by space, I didn't have much basis in that other than that it was a fascinating thing to look at night. But when I took that class is when I became very intrigued, I guess, by how enigmatic it was and how mysterious it was and all the possibilities that were possible in space. And so after that experience in that class, I actually researched careers that involved space, science, engineering, and math, because math was one of my favorite subjects at the time, and it still is. And that's how I stumbled across aerospace engineering. And I just never looked back from then. So it was physics one in my freshman year of undergrad. And I'd never taken physics before that. Some of my classmates had taken physics in high school, but we didn't have that where I went. And so I was not very good at it at all, actually. And I believe I failed like the first test. I did really, really bad. And then I went to go speak, or no, the professor kind of came out and was like, this first test should gauge, your performance in the class, be very mindful that, physics is very fundamental to aerospace engineering and it's very crucial to your success. And so with that in mind, I was like, oh no, does this mean I'm going to be a failure? Does this mean I can't be an aerospace engineer? And so I basically went to that professor's office hours and I was like, I don't want to be told that I can't do this. Just help me figure this out. And he was game. He gave me a lot of resources, and I came back and aced those classes and did very well in the class in general. From that point on, but I think it taught me a lot about failure in that moment, because that was one of the worst, I guess, test grades I've ever gotten before. And it required a lot of resolve to kind of come out of that shock place and actually, end up doing well and finding out what I needed to do to fix what was wrong. Something called sub-kilowatt electric propulsion. It was an internship that I did at NASA Glenn in 2018. I learned that I was interested in electric propulsion during my first internship at NASA Glenn. I had just taken physics 3, which is where you kind of learn electromagnetics. And I had already liked certain things about EP that I didn't know. And so when I stumbled across it, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do in grad school. And I never changed my mind. When I find something, I tend to just kind of get tunnel vision and stick to it. And so this was my first internship working on that specific piece of technology. And so if you're not familiar, or if anybody's not familiar with electric propulsion, it's essentially space propulsion. And instead of using a combustive process like normal, liquid rocket engines use, electric thrusters they ionize a gas using electrons, and then they accelerate those ions to produce thrust. So a very different type of propulsion, but very interesting. And I got the chance to work on that project. It was super, super fun. We were testing stuff. I had a lot of responsibility, and then I eventually got put on a couple of papers with the lead engineers for that. Almost every day has been pretty busy. It's like at least 6 hours in the lab each day for the last few days. But that's not very characteristic of my entire experience here. That's just because we're preparing for tests, and test prep is usually much more cumbersome than the actual test itself. It's been very multifaceted, I could say. And so I'm doing all types of stuff, whether it's making wires, wiring up power supplies, actually building the test component that we're going to test. I actually had the opportunity to do that as well. And so it's just a lot of fun. I can say I'm very blessed to have a bunch of mentors who all have had a huge hands and just helping me get forward in general, in the professional spaces and the academic spaces and the personal spaces too. And so absolutely, it's going to be hard to name everybody because I don't want to leave anybody out. But I mean, when I first started undergrad, I didn't even know what an internship was. Like that was something I didn't think about at all. I was like, I'm just going to get my education and go. But then I met these John Willems and Jade King, oh, now Dr. Jade King, as a matter of fact, who were leadership in our NSBE chapter. And they were like, Naia, you need to get your resume together. We're going to go to NSBE conference. You're going to get an internship. And I was like, okay. And I did exactly that. and I'm so grateful for that experience because I believe that really set me off in the right direction. And they really took time out to really get my life together in undergrad and as a freshman. And then from there, I've met people, I've networked through NSBE, I've networked through NASA, through school. And there have just been so many amazing people in what I call my village who have supported me in so many different ways. And so networking is huge for me and has been the most beneficial. I just think the bigger goal, I have some pretty big goals when it comes to my career and etc. And sometimes I have to take myself I got to take myself out of focus and look at the big picture a lot. And that does help. But sometimes that doesn't help. Sometimes I'm so burnt out to the fact that I'm like, okay, I'm tired. I need something to just get me going. And a lot of that resolve has to come from within too. Sometimes you do it even when you don't want to, and you do it when things are not as exciting. Because some of the things you go through are a means to an end. And I just try to keep that in mind because one thing I learned is that you're not always going to be motivated, and that's okay. That doesn't mean quit. You should only quit after you've had a conversation with yourself and you made sure that was a decision you wanted to make. But motivation is going to be a fleeting thing. Sometimes you just got to hunker down, and you got to do it when you don't feel like it. But then when you do it and you do something great, or you have an accomplishment, what I say is use that as your fuel to the next accomplishment. I think what I got too used to doing was kind of skating by those things and saying, okay, yeah, that was great. And then I move right on. I didn't like take a minute to kind of breathe and accept or embrace what just happened, especially if it's something that I should be proud of. So yeah, just take the moments to pat yourself on the back more. That'll definitely remind you why you're doing something. First of all, don't compare yourself to anybody. That's big. So you can look up to people, but just let it be that. Let them be inspiration. Don't let them be a metric or a standard for your success. You have to set your own standards for success. It's easy to look at your classmate who has a completely different background and compare yourself. I'm the person that applies even when I don't even feel the slightest bit of qualified. That definitely happened with grad school. I did not do well. I think it was the junior year, right before applying to grad school, I failed my first class. And that, if I would have sat there and kind of felt sorry for myself for too long, I wouldn't have applied to grad school. But, instead, I definitely had so much support through that, especially family who were pushing me to keep going. And I got into grad school. But if I had said that I wasn't worthy of getting in, or if I stayed in the place I was when I failed that class, I wouldn't be where I am right now, right? And finally, just find mentors. Find people that you can learn from, especially if it's something that is very new to you. Those people you may stumble upon, but there are other people you may need to seek out. Make networking a priority for you. My website is NaiaButler-Craig.com. I have a form on there where I really enjoy answering questions. I have a lot of different tips, whether it's for applying to grad school, whether it's for how to recover when you failed a class or failed something. I just try to make it as comprehensive as possible. So if you have any questions, please go there and add your questions there so that I can get to them.